Hi, everybody, and welcome back. If you're on this episode, episode 5, I have to feel like you at least like the story. I am Aon, and I am your guide through the multi-dimensional, galaxy-spanning world of Jack the Spacedog. So when we left the story last, I was standing on the plateau of the training area with Tim, the AI that guides me, and Jack. And Tim had asked if I wanted to stay and finish out the full training with this combat system and learning how to use this technology, or he felt like I was at least in control of it enough that I wouldn't be a danger to other people, and did I want to go back. His suggestion was stay. I, of course, wanted to go back, but I was conflicted because now I sort of have a pull to this higher need or this larger calling that I've decided and not decided to be a part of. I said, let's let fate decide, and Tim said there's no such thing as fate. We have an argument, and I flip a coin anyway. I left it off at the coin hitting the dais in the middle of the training area and spinning. As it's spinning and as Tim is trying to argue with me why I should just make a choice, the coin floats off the dais, stops on edge, slams into the dais, cracks the dais, and melts. And from very close behind me, I hear someone say, "What are you doing?" After I jump out of my skin, I turn around, and standing behind me is a bluish-green hologram of a very tall man, very tall humanoid, that I recognize as a character in my mind that I had just thought of as the Visitor. It was this person's visions and ideas that I saw at the end of the fulcrum, the change that I went through, where I saw he was the last prince of that civilization, the only one that stayed on the planet as they were doing the shift into the pocket dimension. He was the only survivor, and he was the one that continued to work their last option, their last program, the thing that became the change that I went through. And he's standing there with a very disapproving look on his face. And he says, "I asked you, what are you doing?" And I freeze. He says, "Let me start over. My name is Callum Viviam. You think of me as the Visitor or the Prince. Why are you flipping a coin over a choice?" I say, "Well, I was stuck, so I didn't know what to choose." His response is, never rely on luck. Luck is a thing that you get the opportunity of. Everything is a choice. Not making a choice is a choice. Make a choice. Based on how I feel, I want to go back. The other is for the good of the mission. He said, you're looking at it all wrong. You think that you have to choose based on what's good for this or that. I saw what you were doing. I've been watching you. I decided to step in. I see that you still don't understand. He says, thinking of fate as though you were chosen, you may as well get that out of your head now. You weren't chosen. No one was chosen for this. A path was laid, plans were made, and someone eventually fit it. No one picked you out of the universe and said, it shall be you. What you are is a statistical outlier that through your choices, nothing to do with this, but through your choices led you here, and that you were able to engage with the system, that all these statistical impossibilities lined up at once is how you came here. He said, but that's not to say that you were chosen. That's to say that your choices were what mattered. Your choices brought you here. So why all of a sudden do you want to give up your choices? They've done so well so far, which I laugh because I don't feel like it's gone that well. He says, your decisions and what you do matter. Luck will be there, but you can't plan for luck. So make a choice. Either choice is a valid choice because you're the one making it. Make a choice. With that, he snaps out of existence just as fast as he was there. And I say, bye, Cal, because I can't remember his name already. I realized I wanted to go back anyway. The whole time the coin was spinning, I was making jokes because I was really nervous because I really wanted the coin to land my way. So I tell Tim, I'm ready to go back. What do I have to do? Tim goes from being the sphere shape that he normally floats around as, and he turns into his human representation of the Tim that I knew, winks at me and says, "You're going to like this next part," and opens up a doorway in the middle of the air and says, "After you." As I step through the doorway, I look at Tim and I say, "Man, that cow guy, intense, right? I'm still here." And so I asked him, I was like, "Is this going to be a thing? Is this the new thing? Every time I say something that you want to interject in, now that you've made yourself known, you're going to give me a jump scare?" He said, "While I was standing there, you seemed like you were just waiting for me to say more, and I can't make the choice for you, so I won't always be here. You have to understand that you, Tim, and Jack, the point of having a 3-organism or 3-part sort of spectrum of choice is each of you have something that the other don't. You know, each of you represent a decision-making process that the others can't comprehend. Tim obviously is an AI and has his way of looking, though it's colored by your human outlook. You yourself are a maker and a doer and a decision maker, but you think. You're always thinking. Jack doesn't think. Jack reacts. Jack just does what he knows is the next thing. So the 3 of you together make up a new whole. You're not just in each other's proximity, you're a part of each other. It opens up the world to possibilities and solutions that weren't available before or to us. That was part of the point of the whole system, was we needed a whole new outlook and perspective because we could see that what we'd been doing in our own echo chamber had failed. We had still not managed to do anything meaningful to fix the situation. He proceeds to scold Tim about that he's there to learn from me, but he's also supposed to be the adult, letting me make a coin toss over even a simple decision. Small decisions are just as important as big decisions. They're all decisions. We're doing all of this back and forth as we're walking, and I have not noticed where we've walked through this gateway to. I'm walking backwards as I'm looking at Tim getting a dressing down by Cal. It sounds strange. He's back in his spherical form, but you can somehow see that the color on him shows that he looks embarrassed. I'm finding this very funny because I've been getting a similar dressing down by him every day as I'm trying to train because I'm never working hard enough because he's intense. Both of them are very intense. As I'm backing up, I trip over a rock and trip off of a short ledge and land on my back and get the wind knocked out of me. As Jack has come over and is helping me up, I turn around to look at what I tripped over, and I'm looking down into the edge of a massive canyon well between a set of mountains. And at the bottom of the well, there is a massive tower circled by large rings going out almost like a quarry, but it's perfect concentric rings. And as I look up, there's the biggest ship I've ever seen. And inside of that ship are massive rings that spread from one mountain range to the other. 3 sets of rings, one around the meridian, one around the vertical, and the other 90 degrees from that vertical. And they make a sort of spherical cage of these rotating tubes of puzzle pieces, just sort of constantly on a slow movement and rotation. The rings themselves are slowly moving. The ones closest to me are so close, I feel like I could touch them, but I can tell that I'm missing the scale looking at them. They only feel that way because they're just so massive. And the ones on the other side of the ring are almost being lost in the haze of the distance. Just the amount of air between me and them. The ship is there hovering over this large tower. Though it's floating and it's hanging there, all of it looks ancient and also not working. It looks sort of like it's made out of stone, but it doesn't have the same sort of life to it that the rest of the city did. Same material, same stylistic look, but it looks inert. It looks dead. Cal says, "Oh, this is the good part. I'll see you in a minute." Tim floats up in front of me and says, "May I present to you the last, the only, the not working ship that will take you home?" And I ask him what it's called, and he rattles off another string of the language that's native to this culture. And again, while I can understand it, it's not something I've learned to say out loud. I remember that, like, in my culture, in maritime culture, like, whenever you get a new ship that's now yours, you rename it. Or if it's your ship for the first time, you have to give it a name. Like, it's bad luck to sail a ship without a name. The ship currently sounds like a string of letters and numbers to me. So I look at Jack and I ask him, what are we going to name the ship? And an image pops up in my head of these hooded figures walking across the desert hauling blocks of salt. And I think about it for a minute. What? Oh, Bedouin. He means Bedouin. It's Bedouin. Tim says, you can't just rename it like this. It already has a very special name. I'm like, yeah, but I can't pronounce it. So it's Bedouin. That's it. I said, so now, do we need to put a battery in it? Or like, is there a key? Or like, how do we get this started? He tells you had the key. It's the same key to the city. It's the same key to everything. Bring up the interface, which, if you're unfamiliar at this point, the interface are the 3 sets of rings that you can see in my paintings that are pictured around me and in various other situations where you can see that I'm using the technology that I've been given. So I bring the rings up, a platform appears in the middle of the rings for Jack and I, as well as an interface. And within the interface, all the stuff appears to me in a way that I can understand it. It looks like drop-down menus from video games. There's lots of stats, there's lots of windows, everything looks dead. And I'm like, okay, so like I get it, but how do I make it start? He's like, you're the key. The tech recognizes you. Put your hand on the screen. So I put my hand on the screen and all sorts of things start to happen. There starts to be a low hum from the ship. Lights start to move up the tower. The rings start to move, instead of like a listless way, they now start to move in a very rigid, clockworking way, all in sync together in opposite directions. It starts to look like double sets of helixes of puzzle pieces for each of the rings. Cal and Tim both say, this next part is the fun part. Hit the button. I'm like, what button? There's no buttons. They're like, make a button and then hit the button. Because everything in the interface is whatever I want it to be. So there's no button because I don't think there's a button. Once I think there's a button, then there's a button. I manifest a comically large and silly blue button that says go on it, and I push it. The rings expand out of view, all of them, into little pieces, and slam together. And in that, it creates a massive gravity wave focused towards the center of the ship. And from that, a tiny little point of light begins. And that tiny little point of light grows and begins to make a very small captured sun within the containment field in the back. This is the drive. This is the source for this ship, much like a Blue Giant sun has been captured and is in a pocket universe that powers everything I do. The ship has its own source. It is almost like its own part of the team, more than just a ship. So if I rewind, this is not originally a battleship. This is an arc ship. This is one of the ships that they would have used to evacuate their various planets before they moved them into the pocket universe. So these ships were not just meant to move millions of people per ship. They were also meant to move organisms, whole plant biomes, flora and fauna biomes both. So within the ship, even though it itself is massive, within it are other gateways to small pocket containments that hold whole biomes. This is an arc ship. Should something go wrong, this was their backup plan. Had all the ships not been destroyed in a battle, the backup plan was if they could not get into their solar system after they put it inside of a pocket dimension, they could still restart everything with a new borrowed solar system somewhere. Nothing would be lost. They had fail-safes on top of fail-safes. They had backups on top of backups. When I say the ship is massive, it looks like a small continent standing up on end from the middle of these mountains. The tip of it goes down into the very lowest part of the valley, and the tip of it almost appears to be scraping the atmosphere. Maybe not quite. That may just be how it appears, but it is hard to conceive of how large this ship is. And now the whole thing is on. I've learned to move around with the short distance jump gates that Tim opened up just to get here in the first place. I opened one up to the inside of the ship, and we all step inside. Jack and Tim and I, and presumably Cal, since he's sort of there and not there, step into the ship. A side note about Cal, the reason he's everywhere and not anywhere is this is not actually Cal. What's left of Cal is a neural imprint that's been given the ability to continue to make decisions based on the neural activity of Cal before he died. This is not Cal in digital, it's a digital imprint of his thought processes and a recording of his life, given the ability to continue to make choices. So it's really an AI trained entirely on his biology and his neurology and his history as a person. And he knows this. He knows that he's not Cal. Anywhere that that tech exists, anywhere that the tech of this civilization exists, he can also manifest near me, as can, we'll learn later, many other personalities from that time. But that's a much longer side quest that we'll cover another time. On the ship, which you can see in the painting Bedouin, there is a sort of pill-shaped piece on the back. The whole ship makes the symbol of their civilization, the On symbol, sort of sitting on its side. The pill section is the operations center, and the rest of it is sort of the cargo or the living area or the biomes that have all been preserved within it. And the ship is full. It's not empty. While it looked dormant from the outside, it's been running for hundreds of thousands of years. So these biomes that were originally made synthetically or placed, man-made inside of there, they've been allowed to populate and continue to grow. So as the ecosystems within each of these containments grows, so does the containment. So some of these exist as whole jungles, whole biospheres within each of these. They've just continued to grow. For a frame of reference, it took humans only a couple 100,000 years to go from non-tool using to landing on the moon. That might give you an idea of the difference many of these biomes have gone through in the period of time that they've been on the ship ready to go somewhere and then didn't go anywhere. So you might be wondering, with all these biomes, like, weren't there people on this ship? So this ship was Cal's ship. This was his ship. He stayed behind to make sure that the transition went well. There's backups on backups. So while they all had copies of these biomes on their ships, he also had one on his ship. So should something happen to them, he has one on his ship and he can go out and leave. He obviously didn't. His choice became to stay and finish the project because no one else was left to do so. They were all destroyed in a surprise attack by the sect. He remained. All the people were on those ships. He was the last ditch opportunity of preservation. So should something happen to them and something make the planet uninhabitable, his ship at least was still there. The last thing. It would have been a whole civilization distilled down to a single vessel. He didn't have to do that. The planet was fine, but he was the only one left. As I end up in the bridge, so to speak, of this ship, I can just understand what parts of this ship are for, what parts of it do, because a lot of their history and knowledge I have in my head, though it takes me seeing something to be able to pull the file, so to speak. Like, it's all there, but if you have all of it there, but you have no frame of reference, like, it's the same as none of it being there. But seeing the bridge, I'm like, oh, I know how this works. I start to get everything ready. So there's two forms of travel. There's distance travel, and then there's dimensional travel. Same drive, different way of operation. I asked Tim to get the ship ready to move out of this dimension, and he starts making some complaints in the background about haven't even looked over the ship, don't even know what's in there. You have to understand, I don't know that all of these, that the upper fin and the lower fin of this massive ship contain the entire stored living species of all their planets within their solar system. But I'm too focused on the fact that I'm about to leave, like I'm about to go. Tim is in the background complaining about procedures, and I'm always in such a hurry. Tunnel vision, I'm not really listening anymore. I am pulling up all these bright screens that are mostly projections because that's my preferred way to interface with stuff. I don't really need to do that. I can really just do it in my head. But there's something cool about having a bunch of movable screens everywhere that I can use with my hands, because I'm used to doing everything with my hands. Most of my skills are based around how well I can use my hands. I tell Tim, I'm like, all right, let's go. And he's like, go where? Hi, buddy. Hi. So Tim says, yeah, go where? Well, I don't know. We need to get out of here. He's like, yeah, but out of here is the rest of existence. So where do you want to go? I have several dead drops on moons that I used to use for my smuggling of native artifacts from these planets. I have several dead drops that I know are in out of the way parts of asteroid clusters. They're not rotating around anything. I have several of these in various areas. I picked the furthest one that I know, the one that's furthest from both my home world and anything else that I remember being active in that area, because it's a big ship, bigger than anything I've seen. So I imagine it would be an alarming thing for anyone to see. Even in my, what I used to think was very advanced culture, I'm finding out if this was a ship that they mass produced, what did their specialty ships look like? We open up this amazing tunnel. It's like half bubble, half tunnel, if that makes any sense. It sort of wells out of the area in front of us and then sort of folds like a donut inside of it. And we spaghettify and snap back together on the other side of the gate, and right in the middle of the asteroid cluster, which all then start pinging all over the ship and crushing around the ship, which is making a terrible racket. And I asked Tim, what are you doing? Why did you? He said, you told me to go from A to B. You didn't ask me if there was anything that you should be looking out for, because he's always kind of a jerk. He's always irritable. He's always kind of a jerk. So I realize it's not doing any damage to the ship. And most of the stuff that is bouncing off the ship quiets down. I know the frequencies, the communication nodes that Victus would have been listening to, or the ones that we usually use to communicate when I was smuggling things. I didn't want anyone to overhear my tight beam transmission of, hey, I have the stuff, make sure the buyer's ready. I pull up these nodes. Tim figures out the technical side of making this ship's communication stuff communicate with those nodes. And I pull up the mic. I just say his name. I just say Victus. And I hear the squelch on the other side of the static. Aon? And we're going to leave it there. I hope you have enjoyed these stories. I will have new ones every month. Please keep coming back. I like telling it if you like listening to it. If you would like to just hear the audio of these stories, you can find it on Spotify. If you like watching me tell the stories, I really appreciate it. They'll always be here on YouTube. You can see upcoming works and time-lapse of my works on Instagram. And if you're interested in having a piece of Jack the Spacedog, AonAlta.com has t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and soon new products. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on my journey. Adventure calls, and I must go.